Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new season of the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly, monthly maybe at the start, recap of what's going on in the world of hockey, specifically Canada and specifically hockey. Okay, this is a preseason show, so we don't have to be perfect. I'm your co-host Mick. I'm joined by my lovely and talented co-host, Whoop!
Whoop! Man, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. I know that there's probably some bike riding analogy in there, but we're going to stick with hockey, and it's like the wraparound. It's like the NHL 94 or 95 wraparound. You just got to get comfortable doing it again, and then it just...
That's it.
All the Stanley Cups are yours.
That's it. Get a couple reps in, guys, and we're here. We're back. I'll figure out what I'm supposed to say off the top. Next show. But that's it. Summer that was... I think we stopped talking after, I guess, the Oilers were eliminated. I think in the second round, right, of the playoffs last year. And that was kind of our sign-off. We said, let's be honest, like we're done. And walked away.
And it felt good to do that. Like, if we're being honest with each other, it feels good to be honest with the listeners. Because we're not going to be here talking about teams we don't want to talk about, especially the Vegas Golden Knights. I sure as hell didn't want to talk about how great they were and how much they deserved the Stanley Cup. But we're back. It's October. There's actually been hockey that started on Tuesday. So we're not even, we're in the thick of it now. Like, the ball, where the train has left the station, the ball is rolling. Momentum is carrying us towards June, albeit somewhat more intermittently at the start of the year.
Oh, yeah. And I'm saying this is our preseason show, right? Take this as kind of a recap. We're going to be kind of looking back at the summer that was, getting you guys kind of primed for the season. Yeah, hockey started last week, but every team's played a game, right? Like, the sample size of what we have to talk about right now is nothing. Like, you know what I mean? If we'd have done a preseason show last week, we're here sitting here talking about, like, is Connor McDavid, what? Is he only going to get 82 points this season? Like, what happened? Why did, Vancouver, are they going to average 8 goals a season? Like, I would like a bigger sample size before I talk about what's going on.
You know what? I like the absolute overreaction. I think that this is like when people just get out of their pants and the world is on fire. It's like, oh God, nothing's ever going to go right. I like that. I like making fun of those people, like the overreactions, like, oh God, yeah, Edmonton's goaltending woes. Guess what? They're going to trade Skinner and Campbell. I've already read those articles, and we're one game into a season. Albeit it was an underwhelming game, but now's not the time, guys.
On TSN's homepage yesterday, the article was, "What is the problem with Ilya Samsonov?" He won the game. They won. The Toronto Maple Leafs won, and they have a goaltender. Like, I was like, what are we doing here, guys? So that's why we're doing a preview show, because I think we got to talk about what's going on. Like, let's get reinversed. So, if you're new to the show, usually we talk headlines. So as we mentioned, we are Canada Pucks. We talked just about the Canadian teams. We'll run through kind of those 7 teams. Usually we do kind of reverse standings. We'd like a bit more of a sample size, so we're not just making fun of the Oilers not having won a game yet. I think they were at the bottom of the standings when I looked this morning. We're going to do some betting advice. Last year we gave you some fantasy advice. We fought with our FanDuel lineups, and I think maybe we were successful twice. And because we were only successful twice out of the 17 shows that we did, I kind of thought maybe that was a segment that could be cut. And I don't know if anyone would mind.
I don't think anybody would mind, because it was just as shocking as it was for our listeners as it was for us to wonder if we were going to be successful. And we had a good run. We started off strong, but by the end of the year, yeah, I think our strengths were more reflected in our Bettor Advice segment than My Dirty Fantasy. So we can play out those fantasies on our own in the dimly lit rooms that we call our basements. But as far as actual DFS goes, I think I'm done with it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. New addition, though, and the hot trend that's been sweeping the world is we do have PuckDoku. So we could play PuckDoku today. Grant, do you have PuckDoku open? Do you want to make any guesses here? We have 9 chances. If you haven't played PuckDoku before, what you have to try and do in each square is find a player that matches both categories. So today we're looking for Colorado Avalanche, Detroit Lions, and Nashville Predators running what is that? Vertically, and then horizontally, we have Vegas Knights, Dallas Stars, and 5+ goals in a single playoffs. Any
Detroit Red Wings. It sounds like you got football on the mind.
What did I say?
Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah, Red Wings. Okay. Oh, it kind of looks like a lion if you look at the symbol the wrong way.
If you squint your eyes just right and do a whole bunch of acid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does look like a lion. Oh,
I see it.
Oh, okay. Sweet. Yeah. So with that, I think we'll kind of maybe make that a running. Just kind of start the show. How's it going? Maybe that's our introduction now. Do a little PuckDoku. Yeah. Show off our sweet knowledge. Any guesses right off the start? You want to make a guess? I'll make a guess. You make a guess, and then maybe we'll move on to a hockey team. Talk about them.
So I'm gonna preface this because what I appreciate most is actually these general categories, 5+ goals in a single playoffs. It's so impossible to memorize or keep track of every player at every destination, and unless you're Jaromir Jagr, who's played for 12 different teams. These ones are kind of like the softball categories. Mm-hmm. So I generally like to warm up there in these general playoff categories or goal scoring categories, whatever it is. Because Colorado, for me, playoffs, it goes back to the 90s, late 90s, early aughts, where they were just a powerhouse. And there's any number of names that we could rattle off. And the first one that came to mind was Peter Forsberg.
All right, I want to try Peter Forsberg. All right, let's see. Does he count? Forsberg, Peter. Boom, 10%. Not bad guess. I'm going to do one better. I think I can get a lower percent on Detroit. I'm going to go with the mule, the man himself, Johan Franzen.
Oh, damn.
You wanted the playoff goal? That's all he did was stand in front of the net and deliver. 8%. Oh, really? 8%? Okay. Huh. I was hoping I was going to get a single percent there. Huh. All right.
Okay.
So now we have to. Rounding out the category. Oh, I was going to do 2 guesses and move on. We'll come back maybe afterwards. Or do you just want to finish that category? Okay, finish it. Give me a national predator.
Now I'm not confident because now all the pressure's on me. Do I actually know the answer to this? Because for me, the first one that came to mind was Ryan Johansson. But okay, maybe we'll try Johansson. Because he was part of their cup run. Was he not?
Ryan. Do we want the Ryan Johnson? I think Ryan Johansson, 2011 through present. Is that the one we're looking for?
Yeah, that guy.
All right. Boom, 9%. Sick. All right.
I thought that I was going to be. Anyways, I mean, we like the unique scores. That's what we're going for. That's part of the strategy here. I thought he was going to be lower than that, but
yeah, I thought so too. And as you're saying, the cup run, I was like, I completely forgot that. Shea Weber, do you think Shea Weber was a lower percent?
Did he have 5 goals though?
That's the thing. I think he did. I bet. Come on, they played into the Stanley Cup Finals. He must have had 5 goals, 2 goals a series.
Okay, well, the categories, are we going to use Shea Weber? Not for any of those ones. Let's do a quick peek here. What did Shea Weber do that postseason run?
Okay, all right. While we're doing that, let's pull it up. So what I did, I went to Cap Friendly, my favorite website, and I scrolled down the list, and I basically, instead of doing a power ranking, I just went with the teams with the most cap space. So that's how they're going to pop up. So there's no rhyme or reason to that other than that. Winnipeg Jets. What did the Winnipeg Jets do this year? I believe if we go to their trade history, the biggest offseason move they had was they were kind of at that turning point. What do they want to do? They have an aging core. Connor Hellebuck wanted a new deal. Mark Scheifele wanted a new deal. Pierre-Luc Dubois was an UFA, and he was headed out the door. So back June 27th, they traded Pierre-Luc Dubois to the LA Kings in return for Gabriel Velarde, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Caparo, and a second-round pick.
I get a F- for awareness. We're talking about the Jets here, correct?
Yes.
I was looking up Shea Weber's stuff.
Yeah, no, totally fair. Yeah.
He only got 3 goals, but anyways.
Ooh, huh.
I think what was more notable for the Jets for me this offseason was the moves they didn't make, because it felt like the sky was falling at the end of last year when they missed out on the playoffs. Everybody was unhappy. Scheifele was going. Connor Hellebuck was going. The world was going to implode. It's time to rebuild Winnipeg. Then we get to like the eve of the start of the season, and Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck sign identical deals that keep them with the team for, was it 8 years?
7 I think years? It's 7. Yeah, they're identical sevens.
And then that takes them till their late 30s, and they're getting paid whatever it is, $7 million a season.
8.5.
8.5? Oh my God! What was Winnipeg thinking?
So, yeah, I don't understand either. You're right. It did seem like this guy was falling. Now, I do wonder, and I do big brain hat right before the draft, June 27th, kind of before free agency starts. You trade for a pretty good return. Like, Pierre-Luc Dubois was a dwindling asset, in my opinion. He wasn't doing it. Like, what did Pierre-Luc Dubois bring? What does he bring to the table right now? Right? He doesn't have any kind of elite skill set. He's not a difference maker on the ice. He kind of seems like he's a pain in the ass. He's now bouncing around, right? He's getting that category of he's kind of a bad locker room guy. Or, like, at least he's not bringing anything to the table that those tangibles that he deserves to be paid. So the fact they got an okay return, right? Like, they kind of restocked their cupboard accidentally with some of those moves, right? Like, I mean, that Alex Iafallo isn't anything to shake a stick at. Like, he's a decent player. He's a good player. Can he give you what Pierre-Luc Dubois gave you on the ice? Probably, right?
And was he not a pending restricted free agent too? Like,
nah, he had some cash left. He has 2 years left at $4 million.
Okay, never mind then. But yeah, I thought that this was going to be a nothing year for the Jets. I thought this is, and like we've talked about this. This is our 8th season talking about this is the Jets' time to win. And at the end of last year, we're like, this window is effectively closed. And what they did with these signings is they're like, let's extend this underwhelming window to make this, to back us into a corner in 3, 4, 5 years where we're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to be stuck with these aging players. I just don't get the strategy. I don't think that there was any thought into, all right, if these guys are unhappy, why don't we kick this rebuild off right now instead of being like, let's mend these bridges and continue to underperform.
The only, like, and like I said, I agree with you. I agree kind of with the sentiments you're coming from. Like, the only thing I'm thinking of is they really think that, like, the Velarde and the Iafallo gave them enough depth to compete as an organization, and they say, look, we still have a little bit of elite talent, right? We have the prospects. Look at Seattle, right? Seattle had a great playoff run, and really they just run with second and third liners, right? Like, they don't have the superstar. So if we can build out 3 solid lines, right? We're icing 3 solid lines a night. They're second, third line NHL quality players. Maybe we have a chance. We're in the weakest division in hockey. Let's sign our 30-year-old guys to $8.5 million each. That'll show. I'm with you. I don't.
So, in the spirit of preseason discussion, what is the ceiling for the Jets this year? Then, like, where are they going?
I mean, they could be a playoff team. Like, and I've said that about them, and even say like a Chicago too, right? Like, people are like, it's Chicago, they'll kind of suck, and I'm like, do they? I don't know. I kind of feel like the Central Division isn't like, they're not bolstering a lot, right? St. Louis is rebuilding. Nashville is kind of rebuilding essentially. Like, they're not looking like they're doing anything great, right? Anytime you have Phoenix kicking around, right? Like, unless Phoenix is in the Pacific. Is Phoenix in the Pacific?
Oh man, no, I believe they're Central.
Are they Central? Okay, I'm just gonna pull this up. Yeah, St. Louis, Nashville, Arizona already done. Like, those guys aren't even trying. Chicago's like, borderline. So that leaves us with what? Dallas? Okay, sure. Colorado, Minnesota, and Winnipeg. Like, is Minnesota as good and Winnipeg very similar? Probably. Like, right now. So I don't know. Playoff wild card. I think they're borderline fringe playoff contenders.
Yes, I agree. They are playoff contenders without question. The division is underwhelming. You're right. I don't even think Chicago deserves the credit they're getting. St. Louis is one of the worst performing analytics teams in the league. Nashville, I'm not sold on Nashville. No. If it wasn't for UC Saros, so anyways, you're right. Maybe I don't want to extend the window though, Mick. We've been fucking talking about these guys and like, maybe they'll get it this year. I don't want to go into the season with that level of optimism, thinking, the Jets because they've kind of been our underdog team at points over the last few years, like the second vested interest. I don't know. I'm going in with no expectations this year. I think that they do have good pieces. I think that they're talented. I think that Kyle Connor is going to lead that team. But, as far as team success goes, I wouldn't be surprised if they poop themselves again. But I'm definitely not getting emotionally invested in this team.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I'm clicking that window, and then we never have to talk about that awful Winnipeg team ever again. Ever again. But what do we want to do? Let's do... do you want to do the Oilers next? Because, according to Cap Friendly, they're the next team. Maybe you want to do how about the Vancouver Canucks? They seem like kind of inoffensive.
This is yeah, we can go Canucks if you want.
All right, we'll go Canucks. Canucks seems like the next logical choice. And if I was to do a power ranking of Canadian teams, it's kind of the order it might be in. Maybe, I don't know. So the Canucks, what did they do? I believe they had some type of trade, right? Trade history. Let's double check. Did they do anything significantly this summer? I don't think they did. No. They traded Tanner Pearson for Casey DeSmith, which seems like probably a cap dump, and then proceeded to trade a 5th-round pick for Sam Lafferty. So, cool.
Yeah, I think... So what we saw at the end of last season with the Canucks was Rick Tocchet riding the ship. Mm-hmm. But we had seen the same thing with Bruce Boudreau the year before in the exact same context where a team was the Canucks were underperforming. They bring in a new coach. They have a great end of the year, but it's still not good enough. That's happened each of the past 2 seasons. So they're running it back. This is largely the same team that made a run to was it the conference finals these guys made it to, or was it just the second round?
No, it was just second round.
So anyways, this team, they think they have the pieces. They think that Rick Tocchet is the guy who's going to bring them to the promised land. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Canucks right now.
This season is actually probably one of the most important they've had since 2010. This might be 13 years later, it might be one of the most important seasons, right? So what I mean by that is they have a pending RFA, Elias Pettersson, coming up, and he can go wherever he wants. He doesn't have to play in Vancouver after this year. So this year is kind of the Elias Pettersson, who's looking like a top 10 guy in the league. Some he scores like he does, right? He scores like a top 10 player. He has an elite skill set. He's definitely the cornerstone of this organization. And if they blow it and they suck and they're in the bottom again, and he's like, I want to get out of here. I want to play some winning hockey. He's gone, right? And that's going to change what does this team do? Because now you're back to rebuilding, you're back to tanking, you're back to burning assets, you're back to trying to collect those players. So we'll see where they go. Now, a group consists of Miller, Pettersson, Besser, Kuzmenko, Beliveau. That's okay. That's maybe 5, 6 okay forwards at the NHL level, right? So depending health-wise, this team did do a lot of moves. I think last year, right, the Philip Veronic, they traded a 1st-round pick for him, brought him in. I think they signed Carson Soucy. That was kind of their big addition this summer, right? So I don't know, a little bit more depth on the back end, a little bit more reliability, healthy Thatcher Demko, which people are saying he was a Vezina winner last year. Yeah, he pooped the bed, but he was still pretty good. So, do they what's the ceiling on this team? I think really it's just show that you're an okay organization, you're competent. Maybe you can make the postseason, or else you might be losing a franchise player.
Not just a franchise player. Scrolling down this list, listen to the people who could potentially come off or potentially leave the team. That is Elias Pettersson, Anthony Beauvillier, Teddy Bluger, Philip Veronic. These are all people players who could potentially sign elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we're here to talk about this year. But I can't help but have a few red flags. What happens if this isn't the year? What happens if they run it back and things don't improve? Do they lose all these players? Does anybody sign back with the team?
I mean, that is kind of where this organization is, right? It does seem like it's on the precipice, that cusp of you kind of need success to keep guys here, right? The Sedins aren't here anymore, right? We don't have Luongo and net. We don't have the star power. We don't have the cachet to compete. And guys are probably like, if I want to live in the Pacific Northwest, like, why aren't I going south by 2 hours and being in Seattle, right?
Because East Hastings, Mick,
Oh.
how are they going to get their fix in Seattle?
Yeah, it's true. It's hard to hit heroin in Seattle. Wait, there's drugs in Seattle. You just go into the woods and go find all like the Nazis in their little compounds and go buy the drugs from them. It's easy.
Oh man, edging towards the political spectrum with some of our takes this year.
Well, I saw a movie one time. It was terrible. A guy got green room. It's real shit. Yeah, green room. Yeah, it's kind of scary. I wouldn't recommend it. Guy gets his arm cut up and it looks real.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a good analogy for what's going to happen to the Vancouver Canucks this year if they don't get their shit together. Sorry, go ahead.
So randomly, too, I was thinking about Ilya Mikheyev. He used to be a Leaf. He played on the penalty kill with Mitch Marner, and then they signed him for $4.5 million a season. That was like 2 years ago. I don't think he's still an injured reserve. What the hell happened to that guy?
So looking at their cap situation, because it is not friendly, it is the opposite of what this website is telling us. This is not cap friendly.
It's not a cap friend. Yeah.
The Vancouver Canucks have $137,500 worth of cap space, and that's without Mikheyev. So this guy, you have to think he's like, they're starting their version of Robidaw Island, where Mikheyev's just not welcome back with the team. They're going to Nancy Harding his knees until basically the contract is over.
That's it. So Vancouver, I don't want to say you're dead to me. Fuck. Yeah. They're kind of dead to me. I don't care. If they were good, I could get behind that. I need to see something. This group needs to win some games. They need to play competent hockey. They need to be a tough team to play, right? They can't just be another random team that kind of falls through the cracks of the schedule, right? So they have to make a statement. And I'd be fine running with this squad. Again, I think I can get behind it. I don't know where their ceiling is though.
I think that their ceiling is contingent on, I don't want to say goaltending, but I'm going to say it. Not exclusively goaltending, but goaltending is going to be a big part of this because Demko has struggled with consistency. Mm-hmm. I've seen him be a Vezina candidate. I've seen, not a Vezina candidate. I've seen him with Vezina-worthy performances, mm-hmm. But he has not been consistent, and he has at times held this team back. Offensively, they seem to be all right. Defensively, they are structured well. But can Demko just be a consistently average goaltender? And that might be what's needed to push this team into the playoffs.
And that's kind of where they're getting. Like, he's 27 now, right? And that's kind of around when they start being that prime, right? Like, you kind of have 2-3 years now. This is your prime season. So this is probably the Demko we're getting. I don't think there's a big potential. I don't think we see 28-year-old goalies improve unless you're randomly Aiden Hill or something like that, and then you win the Stanley Cup with Vegas, and then I spend all summer hearing about how he should be Team Canada's goalie at the Olympics, and I'm like, what are we doing? Aiden Hill? Aiden Hill is going to be our goalie at the Olympics? What? How?
It's either that or Carter Hart, and Carter Hart is everybody's talking about how he's Canada's savior between the pipes.
What happened to our goalies, guys? My whole life I had Brodeur, Waugh, Luongo, anyone. Price. I was always an elite goalie in my life that could take me to the promised land in these international. Now I have Aiden Hill.
Fucking Aiden Hill.
Come on. Oh, son of a... What are we even doing here? Anything else on Vancouver? Where do you see them? Your kind of projections, if you were to pick where they're at. I'm thinking they're a wild card contender, right? I'm not going to give them the first wild card, but the second wild card, I think they could be in play. And that's probably, realistically, I'm thinking what this team can kind of strive for, right? End of the season, you're within a game or two of the wild card.
Here is a cookie crumb to keep listeners intrigued. I like them better than other Canadian Pacific Division teams to make the playoffs.
Sick. All right. Cool. So we'll close that. Let's maybe make a PuckDoku guess. There we go. I got through 2 teams. 2-7. Fucking flying now. All right. So we have to pick another category here, people. Looking at our grid, I'm thinking the Dallas Stars horizontally is probably... No, I guess vertically. Sorry. Dallas Stars vertically is probably one of our guests. So can we think of a Dallas Star that went with Colorado, Detroit, or Nashville? Oh, Nashville's impossible too.
Yeah, these categories aren't super friendly. It's actually your pick, or we can team, because the categories are getting a little more challenging. We're less, I don't know, I'm less comfortable making these picks.
Very much so. I honestly don't know anyone. Like, I'm like Vegas. I'm like, the Seattle Kraken were a category the other day. It was like Seattle Kraken and the Boston Bruins. And I'm like, that can only be like two guys. Like, Seattle's only been around for 2 seasons. So what is this? This is
nonsense. Utter nonsense. So one name that came to mind for Dallas, and again, I'm going back to the 90s. I guess we'll call it glory days. If we go to the center, I don't know if we're handcuffing ourselves here, but Brett Hull, I'm pretty sure, has played for the Stars and the Red Wings.
Brett Hull. Cool. Brett Hull. At this point, I'm taking anything. So, boom, 22%. It's not bad.
Yeah. Man, Stars, Avs, that's a little more challenging.
So the Stars had a random, like, Sean Horkoff. Did Sean Horkoff ever make a stop with the Avalanche?
You know what? I'm willing to bet he did. Do it.
Sean Horkoff. I always, like, there's a couple guys. Yeah, Sean Horkoff. Incorrect. No. Okay, we got to pick a team. Let's go. We just did... Let's see. We started Central. We worked our way to the West. So if we go to the East, that gets us to, I feel like maybe the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, La Belle Provence. Let's go on Montreal. I feel like, did they do anything? Trade history. Oh, there's a 3-way trade going on here. All right, so June 27th. They moved a first-round pick prospect for Alex Newhook from the Colorado Avalanche. I believe they had to, like, sign him or something like that. It was just... Colorado was one of those teams. They had too many good players. They had to sell Alex Newhook. That's kind of fun. They also got rid of Joel Edmondson for a couple picks. They brought on Jeff Petrie with some salary retained, and they were part of the Erik Karlsson deal, but it looks mostly like they were just kind of a cash dump. Got rid of Mike Hoffman. Brought on Casey DeSmith, Jeff Petrie. Yeah.
So... I don't know what Montreal's intention is. It feels like they're kind of trying to pseudo-compete this year, but it also, wholeheartedly, I hope they believe that this is a team of the future. They are not built, or, like, realistically, they're not going to compete in the Atlantic Division this year. But is it a good learning opportunity for guys like Newhook? To a lesser extent Suzuki, but Caulfield, like, those young guys, this is the year where... The Montreal Canadiens are the Ottawa Senators from 2 years ago, whereas it's time for them to, like, just get exposure, get experience, skill up, get where they need to be.
Yeah, exactly where they're at. This is the year for Suzuki, Caulfield. Brendan Gallagher is probably going to take a step back role, right? Like, his role should probably be diminished. The Josh Anderson, right? It's about the Docs and the Newhooks and the Slarkovskis, right? Like, that guy was the first overall pick in the draft. What has he done? Nothing. Like in terms of just, like, star power on the ice, like, that seems like, I mean, okay, he's 19. Let's maybe not go make fun of the 19-year-old kid and tell him he sucks. Let's be nice. Okay, he struggled early on, right? But if they can get him rolling, right? Suzuki, Caulfield, they're 24, 22. We've got Doc at 22. Alex Newhook is 22, and then you got Slarkovsky at 19. So this is a young squad, right? There's 6 forwards that, in theory, could be your core going forward. Do they hit? How do they play on the ice? Where are their styles? There's their clashes. You know, finding those complementary pieces for that is really the point of this season and going forward, right? Then this offseason, I don't know, throw a bunch of money at Claude Giroux and let's say we're going to the playoffs next year. Cool, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So big concerns too. I don't know. It looks like Jake Allen's going to be... Jake Allen got to start the season opener. It looks like they're going to be riding his coattails for most of the year as the primary netminder. Back end-wise, this team is shit. This team is going to get absolutely roasted in their own end. Looking at, like, if Mike Matheson is your primary defender, David Savard, who doesn't have a defensive bone in his body, like... And then we're asking Jake Allen, who really hasn't done anything for the last 7 years. to be the stabilizing force in the defensive end, this team's going to be involved in some high-scoring games this year.
Oh, I mean, we already saw that with the Toronto, the opening night game, right? Where they had a little bit of pressure, you see a little bit of skill up front, but then, yeah, like, they could not stop Toronto to save their life, right? And yeah, looking at the defenseman right now, I'm like, man, what a that's an absolutely disgusting. Why'd they get rid of Jeff Petrie? At least he's a competent player, right? Like, if you're just talking about just a veteran presence on your team, someone you could trade later, like, why are you trying to save cap room right now? Seems odd. It's not like I know they got that David Reinbach or whatever as their first round pick this year. I've heard okay things, but also he was very polarizing because there was potentially like his floor is his ceiling's really low. Oh, okay, huh. That sucks.
Yeah, and this is where like Montreal need, and I call them replacement level defenders because they really contribute nothing offensively, but they're very good at neutralizing defenders.
Okay, yeah.
And they need that replacement level defenseman where they can just like sit like a Jeff Petrie, a guy who can sit back, or like Vincent Desharnais with the Oilers, or who's that big asshole in Vancouver? Tyler Myers. Tyler Myers has evolved into a defensive defenseman. Like that's what they need. They need a replacement level defender who's good at neutralizing and like keeping forwards away from high probability areas. They don't have it. Maybe they develop Reinbach into that kind of player. Who knows? But
and if he does start looking good, I'm sure they'll trade him for like, I don't know, some struggling forward like Jonathan Drouin, sign him to a bunch of money, he never really plays, and then he just leaves as a free agent and signs with Colorado.
And the cycle continues.
So that was probably one of their notable losses, like Jonathan Drouin, but Jonathan Drouin also was a notable loss just his whole career as a Canadian. So
it's a perfect analogy. He left with as much fanfare as with which he arrived, and that is, I actually didn't even remember that.
They traded Mikhail Sergachev, multiple Stanley Cup champion Mikhail Sergachev, who's like the heir apparent to Victor Hedman's top role as a defender in Tampa Bay. Like, what are you guys doing, Montreal? Come on.
Maybe some of those trades were misguided when they thought, well, those trades were misguided. They were bad trades. And I don't want to defend the Montreal Canadiens, but when you have Carey Price between the net, maybe you sacrifice defensemen for more scoring. Yeah. And that's, in retrospect, probably the thought process.
Okay, cool. All right. Bye, Montreal Canadiens. Wait, what is their, like, they're going to be bad this year?
Their ceiling is a top 5 draft pick.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they're just like expecting a 22-year-old Kirby Dach and Alex like Newhook to turn this team around.
And the thing is, maybe they can. Maybe that's a good second or third line a couple years down the road, but don't rely on them this year. This isn't the year where we're going to say, yeah, Kirby Dach, this is the depth scoring the Montreal Canadiens need. No.
Get that first-round pick. Let that sweet-ass scouting department get you another Yuri Slekov or a David Reinbach. That's what you need, those high-end prospects. That's how a rebuild should go.
But weren't they also the team that drafted the rapist, who they basically...
Oh, yeah. That kid. That's like... Yeah. Michael, what was his name? Mark Bergevin? Mark Bergevin had like a real interesting like tenure as a he was just like he was a punk rock star, right? Like just doing whatever he wanted. I don't care.
Anarchist at heart, yeah, just burning down the franchise.
Whew. All right, there we go. So good job, Montreal. Top 5 pick. Probably the worst. Probably should have started with them. The other teams were like, there's a chance. Like Jets, Vancouver make the playoffs. Montreal, no. I didn't know you had Jordan Harris as one of your defensemen.
Like the guy who hosts The Bachelor?
Jordan Harris, yeah, 23-year-old, makes $1.4 million.
Oh, I bet you the guy who hosts The Bachelor probably makes more than that. But anyways, we digress.
All right, let's... I don't know what we want to do. Do you want to try another PuckDoku? No, this one's hard. I don't want to do this one anymore.
This is harder than My Dirty Fantasy. At least we had guesses with My Dirty Fantasy.
It's true. Yeah, now I'm looking at like a Dallas Star. Oh, that one should be obvious. There must be an obvious Dallas Star Nashville Predator.
We'll go back to the well, hey? All right. So...
like Ben Bishop. Did Ben Bishop ever play randomly with one of these other teams? Philip Grubauer. Did Philip Grubauer play for both the Knights and... or no, he was a Kraken, right?
Kraken, yeah.
Hmm.
So the Predators and let me go back to this page. Predators and Stars. Sometimes seeing the logo helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, does Matt Duchene count? Do we just like lightly take Matt Duchene? He just played with Dallas, so in theory he has a point on.
Yep.
All right.
You know what? That's going to be a 60%er, but that's okay. Let's take Duchene.
All right. We just need something. We already got a miss. We're not hitting. 23%. So Brett, that's the same as Brett Hull. Oh, okay. Who's more like? Who's so obvious? I hate that. I hate when you're hitting these ones you think are obvious, and you're like, I had Wayne Gretzky one day. It was 30 assist season and a 20 goal season, but there was also a King and Oilers square, and one of my guesses for like the 30 and 20 was Wayne Gretzky, and I was 1%.
No, come on.
Well, because everyone else guessed Kings and Oilers for Gretzky, right? So
I think I did the same one as you, and I put Jimmy Carson, and
Okay.
even Jimmy Carson was like, I'll have to go back, but
Okay.
he was more than I thought. There was more people guessing Jimmy Carson than I thought there was.
And I had a good one that day, except one of those, the Devils. It was like Devils 30-point season. I picked PK Subban, and it was wrong. PK Subban never had a 30-assist season. Didn't he have like 70 points one year? What did he have, like 40 goals?
I think that was with Montreal, though. I think
But
that when
it can be. I think it could be. Oh, does it have to be with that team?
it is with that. So when it's a stat with a team, it has to be with that team. But when it's a stat with a stat, it doesn't have to be matching seasons.
Okay, all right. So that's sometimes where I screw up. Or the ones that I screw up more is like the Matt Duchene. Had we done this a week ago, Matt Duchene has technically never played with a Dallas Star. So on Hockey DB, he would never have a stat in that category, so he doesn't count.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go to Flames or Senators.
You know what? Let's keep the crappy party going. Let's do Flame.
All right, cool. That's the one I pulled up. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. What did they do this year? I think they did nothing. Is that fair to say? They traded Tyler Toffoli for Igor Sharganov and a third-round pick.
Cool, man.
Yep. That was kind of their big move. It was fire sale. The sky's falling. What are we going to do? And they did nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And I think that's a good metaphor for what's going on with this team. They continue to think they have all the pieces, and they're bringing in a new coach as a calming voice of reason over Daryl Sutter, who apparently lost his locker room early in last year.
Yes.
Is that enough? Is a coaching change going to get this team into the playoffs?
Yeah. I don't hate the Calgary Flames. Like they have pieces, right? They have some prospects coming up, right, that are going to be fun. They've got Dustin Wolf. It's coming up. He's going to give Markstrom a run for his money. Markstrom, it might be done. Like that might be. And now we're looking at like Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf. Probably your weakness is a net. Okay, cool. But like defensively, I don't know. Mackenzie Weegar, Noah Hannafin, Rasmus Anderson. It's not terrible. The last team we were talking about, what was his name? John Harris on defense for the Montreal Canadiens. These are actually quality NHL defensemen. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And up front, Huberdeau had the biggest drop-off ever points per season, right? From his 100-some points to 60 or something, or his 40 points, whatever he had last year. So does a guy like that bounce back? Maybe. Probably. Especially if you like your coach and you actually give a fuck. I think Huberdeau could be a difference maker, right? And like Elias Pettersson is now in a career year trying to play his way out of Calgary. Does he step up? Sure. Like they have some competent NHL players. Could they be better than the Vancouver Canucks playing for the second wild card? Yeah, probably. I would imagine it would probably be Calgary, Vancouver for a playoff spot is probably how the season boils down. And that's great. Honestly, as a Flames fan, a Vancouver fan, that's what you're asking for too, right? With kind of what just to say to these franchises right now. So that would be my pick, my guess. Do you have different thoughts?
So I have you're right. And I will concede several points, and that is their back end is strong. And they do have like the circumstances surrounding Elias Lindholm. Sure, that's beneficial. Getting a guy in a contract year where he's looking for an upgrade, prime hockey years. Yep. Lindholm set up for success. I'm not as sold on Huberdeau as you are. Maybe this is last year, without question, was an anomaly. But does he get up to where he can be the Matthew Tkachuk or the Johnny Gaudreau of years past? I don't think so. And I think that's what holds this team back, because I don't think they have the scoring presence. And combined with Jacob Markstrom, who's just never looked comfortable in a Flames jersey, I don't know if this team, and this is what I was alluding to in the Canucks segment, was I like the Canucks as much as you like the Flames. Like, I think that this team could, the Canucks are just a superior version of the Flames. But when you brought up Dustin Wolf, the wheels started turning for me. And I was like, you know what? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe Jacob Markstrom, maybe this team just needs to accept that it's time to move on from Jacob Markstrom. And looking at their cap-friendly page, they've got, 5 defensemen and 4 forwards who are pending free agents. I don't know why. Like, if you're going to give a young goaltender a chance to succeed, this is the year. You don't put it off to next year when you're potentially losing half your blue line and some of your scoring presence. This is the year where you bring in a young goalie, insulate him with a strong team, and say, here, this is your development year. We're going to expect bigger things from you next year.
Sure. Do we have cap? They have cap space, right?
They have no cap space. They have literally $0 of cap space according to Cap Friendly.
That's too bad. But, I mean, I'm looking at Markstrom. That's $6 million a season. Could you send that guy to, like, Phoenix? Just say, go ride it out in Phoenix for a while, right? Here's a cap dump. What's one of these teams that's failing? Here's a goalie. Take some money, right? That gives you an option maybe to bring a piece in.
That was exactly my thought when you said Dustin Wolf. I was like, trade Jacob Markstrom, free up some cap space, bring in Dustin Wolf. Guess what? You have a little bit of flexibility. You've got a young goaltender in a good situation. That's probably your best chance of succeeding this year.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a fine line. Like, I'm not saying, they're definitely. It's going to be fine. If I'm a Flames fan, I'm hoping maybe to see a postseason game, right? Let's get shelled. Let's get swept somewhere, right? Then we can go sell our jerseys in garage sales. That sounds like a good idea, especially very on brand for the Calgary Flames. So the bit might be okay. You know, maybe they're shit. But like, we've seen Huberdeau and Kadri succeed in tougher. Well, Kadri has been better in tougher markets, right? Like, you can't tell me Calgary's tougher than the shitstorm that is Toronto, right? Like, you make it there, you can kind of make it anywhere there, kid. Huberdeau, well, people pay a little bit more attention to the Flames than the Panthers, but.
And at $10.5 million, they're expected to deliver like game-changing metrics.
It's fine. You can hire someone to shovel your sidewalks, Jonathan.
You know what? Remember the good old days when you and I used to just grab our shovels in university and shovel sidewalks, and then mystery people would just give us keys to their liquor store and say, "Go grab some beer on me."
Yeah.
Maybe this is, we just have to go to the rich neighborhoods and start shoveling. Maybe this is the revival that the Mick and Grant snow shoveling business needed.
That's it. That's all we needed was just one like poor cold Florida man stuck in his house, and he's like, "Can't go outside. It's too cold. Can't do it."
What the hell is this Royal Reserve, you asshole?
I want Kirkland brand. All right, yeah. Flames. I don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah, we'll see.
Ceiling wise, where are they?
They are fighting Vancouver for the second wild card.
I was going to say the exact same
thing.
Like,
you have 10 games left in your season, and you're within like 4 points of a wild card. That is like exactly what this team is looking for. It's going to be exciting down to the end.
Okay, cool. We'll ride this wave together then.
Sweet. Now, when they're dead and they're dead last and they're in the bottom 5 in like just January, we'll be like, I see. Okay, well, I was wrong, but...
Thanks for nothing, Jacob Markstrom.
Thanks for nothing. Before we get to, I guess, what I'd maybe call our lock teams, let's talk about our last maybe fringy team. We'll do a couple PuckDokus, and then we'll get to the big guys. So that means we're talking about the Ottawa Senators with their $62,000 in cap space. What did they do? Did they do anything? I don't think they did. They traded Alexander DeBrincat. They brought in Dominic Kubalik. And they got a first, so it's kind of fun. Any signings? No. Oh, Korpisalo. There you go. Jordas Korpisalo. That was the answer that we needed.
I I think that stability in net will do this team well. And I think Jonas Corposello is the guy who can be. We don't need. Not every goalie is going to fall on the elite end of the spectrum. You're going to get maybe. I don't even think that there's 5 game-changing goalies in the league anymore. Goaltending has just become this, like, I don't want to say lost art, but the game-changing goaltenders like the Carey Prices, the Roberto Luongos, the Martin Brokers you were referencing at the start, there are a fewer and further between now. But Jonas Corposello is a guy who can stabilize the Sens back end, and that's exactly what they need because their offense will thrive this year. We saw glimpses of it last year, and we got a taste of it the year before. And if we're following this like upward trend, this is the year where it all comes together, where we're going to expect this team to compete offensively on the road and at home, where in the past, last year, it was less consistent on the road. This is the year. You've got the experience. You've got the exposure. All right, Brady Tkachuk, no nights off.
Yeah, true. And if Jonas Corposello just, like, stability. As soon as you said that, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because I was, they've just been a revolving door since even with Craig Anderson, right? Like, it just seems like this franchise the last decade has just been churning up goalies, and like they can't win. Like, absolutely can't. As soon as they look like they've got something with Matt Murray, oh, he's out and down with an injury, right? Like Antoine Forsberg was up and down. They had the guy who went to Minnesota, but I think he was hurt a bunch too. Or like Andrew Hammond, remember the Hamburglar? That was a thing. That was like 2 weeks of our lives. Terrible, absolutely terrible. So yeah, a little bit of stability. Other than that, I do think they brought in Tarasenko to kind of replace the Deberkamp role. So 31-year-old on a 1-year deal. In terms of offense, you want a guy that can put some puck in the net if he can stay healthy. Yeah, Tarasenko is probably similar to Deberkamp, right? Doesn't have the high upside. He's not going to be with this core long term. So more of just a piece of what's the worst that happens. He wins us a couple games, or we trade him at the deadline to a contender, right?
Listen to this. So I'm actually going to phrase this as a bet because you and I love bet, and this will get everybody amped up for our, Bettor Advice segment. Over under 6.5 goalies who played for the Ottawa Senators last year.
Under.
You're wrong. It was 7. They had 7 goalies play for them last year. Magnus Hellberg, Dylan Ferguson, Cam Talbot, Anton Forsberg, Kevin Mandolese, Mads Sugard, and Levi Merilainen. That's absurd.
All right, so they definitely needed to address the goalie, which I think they did. They brought someone that's a little bit more competent, right? Like he can be at least, maybe they'll be down to 4 goalies this year now.
Once Corposello gets sucked into Montreal, or like he goes across the river and finds him a nice French woman at one of them fancy gentlemen's clubs, he's never going back to Ottawa.
No, never.
But you know what? Maybe they get a good few weeks out of him.
Otherwise, like we've talked about, like the Strutzels, the Tkachuk, the Drew, Tarasenko, Batherson, through 5, they're looking pretty solid on forward. They've got a lot of offense. They've got a lot of kind of explosive power. The back end things get kind of screwy. They brought in Chikrin last year, right, as kind of a reclamation project from Phoenix. I think they signed Artem Zub for $4.6 million for the next 4 seasons. I don't know if I love that move. Seems like a lot of money for a guy named Zub.
Zub. There's got to be a good chub or rub.
I saw a report yesterday that Eric Branston, one of their defensemen, younger guys, I think they got from like the Mark Stone trade with Vegas or something like that. They're looking at moving him so they can bring in, sign the forward Shane Pinto. Sure, let's get rid of a defenseman for more forwards. That seems smart. And then the big move, I guess they also did, was earlier this summer they signed 21-year-old defenseman Jake Sanderson from Calgary, Alberta, to an $8 million contract. He played 40 NHL games. What are we doing?
So I was going to talk about other things defensive-wise that I was happy with, but you're right. Let's unpack Jake Sanderson. How high do you think, I don't even know who their GM is, it's that balding guy, Pierre Dorian?
Yep.
Is that it?
Sure, yep.
Was he on bath salts? What combination of drugs would have made this the signing that the team needed at the time?
I honestly don't understand that move at all. Like, they are now investing $16 million in a 26-year-old Thomas Chabot and a 21-year-old Jake Sanderson for like the next 8 years. Well, I guess 4 years, but Sanderson signed for 8 years. I don't understand. Like, I realize that the market for defensemen, as we've seen the last couple of days, we've seen a couple deals that get handed out that you're like, man, that's insane. That's crazy. Defensemen just get, like, overpaid. Jake Sanderson has, like, a pretty elite skill set that he brings to the table. He's shown a lot of mistakes, though. He doesn't seem like he's the most competent player. Yeah, he's 20. Sure, he's going to have a slip up here and there, but, like, what is that? Where is Dorian looking and seeing this consistency from this player, saying like, this is the guy, this is our guy going forward? I don't get it. I don't know if he's just thinking like, we'll take a swing if he turns into the Erik Karlsson. We've got a good deal.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's the rationale, but I think the approach should be different. I think that if you're going to give him $8 million, here's $8 million for 2 seasons, or maybe 3 seasons. Be like, this is a gamble. We get that it's a gamble, but this is a gamble that we're thinking is going to pay off. How do you wiggle free from this if it doesn't? Like, if you're in 2030 and you're like, we're still paying Jake Sanderson $30 million.
And he's only played 50 NHL games. Like...
So, yeah. Maybe this is their version of Stepan Robida or Ilya Mikheyev. Maybe this is Pierre Dorian trying to big brain something and be like, we're going to cap this guy's knees in early 2024, and we're going to have all this extra cap space because you guys are going to be the assholes. Maybe that's part of the strategy. I don't know.
I do wonder if, like, karma is just a bitch, right? And the Senators fans for a couple years now have been sitting and, like, strangle holding the Maple Leafs with the cap held that they're in. Oh my God. Can you guys believe that you paid these elite players like your Mitch Marner $10 million a season? How silly would that be? I only gets 100 points a season? What a moron. This is literally karma coming back and biting you. Because now I'm like, you have to get rid of Eric Branstrom, a 24-year-old high potential prospect still, because you need to sign Shane Pinto because you're in cap hell because you signed Jake Sanderson to an 8 million after 40. Okay, cool. Good job. Good job, Ottawa. Oh, you pay Vladimir Tarasenko $5 million to be injured all season? How proud. So.
Okay. So, yes. Sanderson, without question, big fail. I like Brandstrom. I think he's so good. He's got such a great ceiling. And I thought Brandstrom, until you mentioned that they're looking at trading him, I was like, that's...
Chabot, Chickturin, Brandstrom, Sanderson. If I told you that's their core going forward for defensemen, you'd be like, man, that is sick. With this forward group, this team is... But they've like almost kind of wrecked it.
Yeah. $21 million tied up between those defensemen this year. 26.4 next year, and that's without Brandstrom's side. So, yeah, I don't know. Would
you rather have Draisaitl and McDavid or Thomas Chabot, Chikrin, Arten Zub, and Jake Sanderson?
Yeah, it's not even like the gap isn't even that big. It's like it's McDavid, Draisaitl, or Chabot Sanderson. That's the equivalent.
Like, what did you do? You had one job. No, but it's cool. We got 37-year-old Claude Giroux still in the books, so.
Yeah. God. So, I'm not gonna lie. You've taken some of the the optimism that I was going into the season with the Sens, and you've rubbed some of that off. But nevertheless, I do think that this team is a playoff team this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a big part of that is just the Atlantic kind of just got worse, right? Like everyone just got worse. No one got really better, and these guys, yeah, they made a couple moves that got them there. I think long term, the future of Ottawa is not looking great, right? Like they had what could have been one of the best young cores, one of the most exciting teams, one of the next Canadian teams, right? Like the teams that kids are wearing Sens hats down the streets, we're being parades. Like I don't know if it's going to be the brightest future now. Right now, though, they might be okay. I think they've got a chance, right? Like they're better than Detroit. I don't think Detroit and Ottawa should be in the same sentence, right? Like the Florida Panthers, they barely made it in the postseason last year. Yeah, I realize they almost won, that they had a chance of winning the Stanley Cup, but like they're going to be worse.
On game 82, they got into the playoffs and they needed help.
Because Pittsburgh dropped the ball. I think because Pittsburgh lost. Yeah. Like all Pittsburgh had to do was win and they're in, and then they lost the game, and you're like, oh shit. So
yeah,
okay, great. Buffalo Sabres.
So and this is where like Boston's not the same.
No,
Florida's not the same. But we're talking about Tampa. We're talking about Leafs, without question.
Yeah.
I think it's Buffalo, Ottawa from there. I think it's Ottawa, Buffalo from there.
I kind of agree with you. Like, as much as I want to shit on this team, the shame is we're going to see the highlights. We're going to see like the stars, what could be with the Senators, and then it's just being pulled away from those poor fans. So like, I do feel for the fan base. Good guys out there. Definitely don't deserve anything bad. Fucking assholes.
All right, well, that leaves us with two teams.
Let's do... I think if we did order of contenders, I would rank them Leafs, then Oilers. Oilers being the favorites, if we were going up a list. So jump right to the... let's do a PuckDoku, actually, first. We got to make a wrong guess here. We got 3 shots left, 4 squares. Can we get any of these squares filled in? I don't think we can.
All right.
I think it's impossible.
It shouldn't be this hard. Vegas, goddamn Vegas. They had an expansion draft. Literally everybody from a team, NHL team, went to the Vegas Golden Knights. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like, just playing through this, okay, well, who did they end up taking in the expansion draft? But I can't think of anything. I really can't think of who they got from...
probably a defenseman. If you're thinking of a forward, that's your mistake, because Vegas took, like, 27 defensemen. We were like, morons.
Did Malcolm Subban play with Detroit or no?
Ooh, Malcolm Subban. Was he a Predator? No, I'm thinking.
Oh, he was.
Because him and PK were on the same team. No.
Okay, let's go Subban, Nashville, Vegas.
Because he might also been Detroit. He might have also been in Colorado. God damn it, man! All right, Malcolm Subban, sure. Detroit was pretty terrible. Is that we're doing Predators or Detroit?
Let's do
Predators.
Let's do Predators.
Okay. Subban. Incorrect. All right, Toronto Maple Leafs. What did you guys do this summer? I don't think they really did much, right? Trades? Did you have any cool trades? No. They traded away Sam Lafferty. That was sad. We were all a little more dead inside after that happened. Sam Lafferty. Vancouver, if you want my scouting profile of Lafferty, man, Sam Lafferty might be the fastest guy on the ice, and like 3 times a game, you're like, wow, he's incredible. And then he does nothing else. So, like... They re-signed Samsonov, Joseph Wall. I think like goalies, nothing really special happened there. On the back end, they signed John Klingberg to 1 year, $4 million deal. That was kind of it. Everything else was kind of intact. Austin Matthews got locked up to a 4-year deal for $13.25 million. And I guess they got Max Domi at 3 and Tyler Bertuzzi, losing a couple players along the way, right? Like the O'Reillys and the Shens didn't come back, but that was kind of their summer, right? Was kind of the big swings. Klingberg, Bertuzzi, and Max Domi.
I'm going to say this. Toronto started off with the worst start to free agency probably ever. Like, there's not one team that had a worse start to the post or off season than Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'm driving out to BC. I've got a week's vacation, and I'm getting what was the trend that day on July 1st with Twitter? You've hit your something max.
I don't know.
Oh, there was like a tweet max, like because that was when Elon Musk, he put this. If you weren't like a verified account, you could only look at like 500 tweets a day, and somebody changed the code, so you hit your like tweet limit. And it was like 9 a.m, and I hit my tweet limit for the day, so just no one could communicate and no one knew what was going on. It was phenomenal. But yes, absolutely one of the worst days I've ever seen. Shen leaves, O'Reilly leaves, all of a sudden the well starts drying up, and they got... Was that when they signed John Klingberg? Or no, it was Ryan Reeves.
Ryan Reeves was the first signing, and it was like... He's 36... He's getting $1.35 million per year. So effectively, you're paying this guy $4 million. And I was just flabbergasted. I remember thinking to myself, this is the start of the end of the Leafs. Like, if this is their priority, they're fucked. Like, they're just fucked. Mm-hmm. But they totally redeemed themselves. Maybe not the very next day. Maybe this was a couple days.
It was the same. It was, I think, literally the next day. This is when they got Bertuzzi. I was outside drinking with my woes and went from like depressed to ecstatic.
Yeah. So Bertuzzi and Domi are, I would say, upgraded replacements over the pieces that they've lost. I don't get why Max Domi can't just like carve out a role with the team, but everywhere he goes, he's an impact player. He was an impact player in Montreal. He was an impact player in Dallas. And like for what you're paying him, which is $3 million, which is basically a show me deal, you are giving this guy a chance to just be the prototypical third line center that pushes this team over the edge. And I think that he's going to excel.
Yeah. He didn't look great in game one. First game jitters, right? First game in Toronto. I'm sure he's pretty excited to be there, right? But like number 11 was standing around on the ice a lot, doing nothing. So the one thing on the Max Domi note, I know John Klingberg had a lot of criticisms, right? $4 million for this guy who's clearly done. I don't know. Game one, him running the point on the power play, like he's really good. He's a very good setup man. He takes a lot of pressure off. He definitely is an upgrade over Morgan Riley. And really, at $4 million to have a guy who's going to put up like 70 points this season, it's going to look like just an absolute steal. And then Tyler Bertuzzi, who was probably the number one center. He's 28. He was looking for a bit longer of a deal. The fact that Brad Treliving was able to bring in a player that just has grit and skill and kind of helps, like plays perfectly with either one of your guys, like between the adds that little bit of grit and toughness that maybe the Austin Matthews doesn't have in his game, has that little bit more speed skill just to complement like a John Tavares. Absolutely just astounding deal. Like their forward group now of Austin Matthews, Tavares, Martyr, Nylander, Bertuzzi, Max Domi. That's 6 pretty solid NHL players, right? That's the best list I've read thus far of guys, of just forwards.
Yeah, I think I think so. The part that kind of rubs me the wrong way with all of this is this team is largely the same. Brad Treliving, Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, even John Klingberg. Yes, great signings. If this team succeeds, and I think that they will succeed, this could be a banner year for this organization. I think Treliving is going to get too much of the credit, and everybody's going to forget about Kyle Dubas. And I think that Kyle Dubas is the architect.
Oh, look at the bottom. Look at the bottom. Matthew Nyes, entry-level deal. That guy looks... he didn't look great in the first game, but like he has moments, right, when he's playing with John Tavares, where you're like, oh, you're 20 and you look like a superstar. Great. Fraser Minten actually fought for it, like Noah Gregor, right? Like these are all players. Oh, maybe he was just signed. Actually, never mind. But like you see the prospects that Dubas laid down the foundation, right? And I guess that was like a whole subplot that was kind of lost too, right after this whole off season was the Kyle Dubas situation where he was coming back and then he overplayed his hand and then Shanahan kicked him out the door. It looked like it was going to be bad for the Leafs, right? Like we have Brad Treliving, who what has he done? Well, he kind of ruined the Flames franchise. He traded away a top 5 player for Jonathan Huberdeau, and then he did nothing, and then he lost O'Reilly, and then he lost. It didn't all look great. I think he's kind of brought it around. He got Austin Matthews signed, which was a big deal, and really it's kind of Nylander, I guess, at this point is like the last piece of the puzzle. If you can get Nylander signed to a competent deal, then Treliving, without a fail, that the Leafs fortunately kind of went from one GM to another, right?
So does this? It seems inevitable. You know what? I'll put that thought aside. Okay. I've talked about this for basically every year that the Leafs have been in contention. What about goaltending? Like Ilya Samsonov, and this is one of those absolute overreactions that I just crucified somebody for at the start of the show. Can Ilya Samsonov actually lead this team to glory?
He did okay last year. Is he a weak link? Yeah, probably. But like Joseph Woll also was way more competent than he should have been last year when Samsonov got hurt. So I'm looking more at what does Joseph Woll bring to the table, right? And as that tandem, probably better than Murray Samsonov. Right? Like you have 2 young players that come in and push each other, right? Fight each other. They're still both young and healthy. They're not broken Matt Murray, who's, bless his heart, in his injured reserve. He really saved this team, my friend. Good job.
This is how you get away with $100 million payroll in the NHL. Yeah. You just bring on Matt Murray and a few other scrubs that you can put on the LTIR.
Perfect. It works. So yeah, is goaltending an issue? Yeah. Is their defense leaky? Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. But they do have some of the best defensive forwards in the leagues, right? Like, we could sit here and talk about what they have offensively. Marners and Matthews might be two of the best defensive players in the league. And they're elite offensive players too, right? Like, that you kind of get that dichotomy up front, and I'm hoping that just balances all the lines, right? Kind of helps that balance over the overall through the ice, right? When everyone's doing their role.
And I was just going to say, it's structure. It's the Leaf systems that set them apart. They've embraced analytics way ahead of basically every other franchise, pioneered it really. And their structure always puts them up like on the elite end of the spectrum. So structure-wise, you can probably overlook some of those defensive miscues because you're right. You have a forward group who plays a strong brand of hockey in their own end and gets better production than virtually any other top six.
There you go. Sweet. Cool.
But I'm going to say, I'm going to say this now. It's a preseason. We're looking ahead. It feels like, without question, this is a team that's going to be in the playoffs. I suspect they win the Atlantic Division this year.
Yeah.
I'm betting they win the Atlantic Division this year. But the poetic ending we all deserve is Pittsburgh, Toronto, in the conference finals. It feels like if there's a hockey god who's listening, that would be just like the cherry on top of what's going to be a successful season for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And yeah, like, it's so much has to do with health, right? Like, I mean, we could boil it down to, like, somebody gets hurt, it does change. But I agree. I do think that they probably should be the favorites to win the Atlantic right now. Boston got worse. Tampa got worse. You're like, if you're not better than Buffalo and Ottawa at this point, like, blow it up, guys. Like, what are we doing, right? So yeah, they're probably favorites to win that, which gives them probably a favorable first round matchup with some hot wildcard team, and they lose in the first round. And history is a flat circle, or time is a flat circle. Don't ever try and change yourself. So.
And that leaves us with what? One team? Or are we going to just get this PuckDoku over with?
Yeah, we got two shots. We got to do this, and we'll talk about the Oilers. Ivan Barbashev, where did he play? Did he ever play for Vegas? And didn't he play for both Vegas and Colorado? Like, don't they have one of those shared guys? Like,
I think Barbashev was St. Louis. But
I think he's got to shoot a shot here. How about like a Session? Wasn't there a guy that had like a name that was like SESS, like Session or something? Didn't he play for Nashville?
Man, that's very much a possibility. I don't know why Vegas is so hard. Who's their defenseman? They got that Alex. Oh my God,
Pectrangelo, not Pectrangelo.
No, he didn't play in. No, he was St. Louis. Was Barbashev St. Louis too?
Yeah.
You know what? Put Barbashev for Predators then.
Barbashev. Barbashev. Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
yeah. Boom. Incorrect. Oh no, only one guess left. Oh man, we're not doing very good on our PuckDoku today.
No, well, we'll get there. Okay, so Red Wings. If we go back to the Red Wings, well, they've had. Or where did William Carrier play? Was he Nashville?
Oh, maybe. I like that. All right, William Carrier. I'm not even think about it. William Carrier. No, that was wrong. Okay. Let's. I think doesn't show us the answers anymore.
Maybe that's a phone only move.
Huh. Yeah, because usually you can click and they'll tell you like other answers and stuff. I'm not getting that right now. Fuck. Oh wait.
Okay.
No. What if we just view stats? There we go. Nikushkin was a Dallas Avalanche.
Okay. Never would have thought of that.
No. This is going to show us other answers. Andrew Cagliano. Matt Duchene. Oh, Matt Duchene. Son of a gun. Claude Lemieux. Okay. All right. Then Vegas, we could have had, what's his name? Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Paul Stastny, Thomas Tatar.
Thomas Tatar.
Okay.
I did not know he played in Vegas.
So that's a Vegas. Detroit could have had David Perron, Thomas Tatar again. So if you don't know Thomas Tatar, you lost out on a lot. And then, and then of course, James Neal. Did James Neal ever play for Vegas?
Yeah, I remember that.
Eric Holla, Lucas Sabiza, Nick Cousins, whatever.
Vegas, you suck.
Vegas.
If I had to more disdain for your franchise, I didn't think I could find more disdain for your franchise, but here we are at the end of PuckDoku, and I hate you even more.
Mike Fisher. Oh, pretty good. Yeah, Ryan Johansson, 9.6%, under 10. It's not bad. Austin Watson. Get out of here with Austin Watson. All right, let's go to probably the favorites for the Stanley Cup in the entire National Hockey League because they have one of the best. We don't have to get into the Draisaitl conversation, but the best player in hockey right now resides with the Edmonton Oilers. Did they make any trades this summer that were noteworthy?
Nothing. I don't think they made one trade.
On June 29th, they traded away Kyler Yamamoto.
For what?
Just nothing. They traded him to Detroit for future consideration. Oh, you don't see that very often. Like, that's a big part of mine and Grant's lore is future considerations. The amount of future considerations that we probably owe each other, we'd never be able to rectify this. Like in a court of law, we'd be screwed.
We would be screwed. And to go back and because future considerations largely hinge on what was the outcome. We're going to trade you this person, and then we'll give you something back depending on the outcome.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we traded and what the outcomes were. But you're right. This is a conversation for a judge, the court of the King's Bench, where we can sort this out and really figure out who owes who what. But as far as the Oilers go, I don't think that this... I hate that this team is going into the season with expectations. I hate that every time things seem to be going right with the Oilers, everybody is on their dicks about, all right, this is the time it all comes together for the Oilers, and they're going to win the Cup this year. Because there are still some shortcomings on this roster. I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. And let the season opener against the Vancouver Canucks be Exhibit A of the goaltending concerns. And I'm not going to say that the sky is falling. You got to trade Stuart Skinner and Soup to be like rebuild the goaltending, find somebody who can come in and be a starter right now. But how do you offset those shortcomings between the pipes when your defense is also somewhat underwhelming? Mm-hmm. We've seen them get exposed by eventual Cup winners in each of the last two postseasons. Last year, Vegas exposed them in their own end. The year before, it was Colorado, and it wasn't even particularly close. Like, those teams walked away with it. And the lack of, no coaching changes, no personnel changes, what's going to be different this year? I don't know. Are they a great regular season team? Without question. Are they going to score a whole shit ton of goals again? Yes. Are they the Stanley Cup contenders that everybody thinks they are? Not without changes on defense.
And it is... These last two teams are almost the hardest to preview because they're the most boring. It's really until April, nothing matters, really. Like, what is McDavid, Draisaitl going to do in the regular season, right? They had one of the most historically excellent performances last year, right? Like, every single player, Zach Hyman, Nugent Hopkins were getting 90 points, right? The guys were being able to point, see? But I'm like... But everything was just so inflated from an offensive point of view that you almost kind of have to say, like, there's going to be some regression to the mean, right? Where we're going to see these guys score a little bit less probably this year, right? Like, we're not going to see the massive offensive kind of balloon that sits with this team. Maybe we do, because that's how they're forced to play, because, yeah, you're right. They're shaky in the back end, to say the least, right?
Maybe that's what's needed. Maybe they need to struggle. And you are right. You're not going to get the same type of production that you got from everybody, because everybody did improve last year. And I don't like cross-sport references so much, but it kind of reminds me of Steve Nash. Remember glory year Steve Nash, where it didn't matter who came to play for the Suns. They were better. Yeah. Leandro Barbosa, who's all of a sudden like a scoring king because...
Boris Diaw, offensive juggernaut?
And that's... The Nash to McDavid comparison, maybe that extends into this year in the sense that McDavid does get the most out of his counterparts, and he does help these people maintain those lofty standards. But like Steve Nash in Phoenix, they never got over the playoff hump. And I would rather this team is met with resistance during the regular season and it forces them to adopt a different brand of hockey that makes them better in the playoffs.
And like weirdly enough, though, last year they weren't the best. They did struggle for a while, right? Like going into December, maybe even January, this team was struggling. They blew up and they started like going supernova probably a little early to end where they did, but like there was parts where they weren't in a playoff position, right? Like they were in wild card spots, right? So like they have had that season adversity, and it's what I was my point I think I was trying to get to earlier before I got kind of stuck in my offensive balloon analogy was we're kind of just waiting for this team to get hot at the right time, right? We need Leon Draisaitl to Matthew Tkachuk to just go super red hot for 2-3 weeks, take over some series, lay his body on the line, be playing with a broken sternum, scoring goals in the last couple minutes. And really that's kind of what their season equates to, which sucks. Absolutely sucks. Toronto's in a very similar boat, right? If Matthews doesn't go supernova at the right time, they're going to lose to some shit team in the playoffs, and then we're stuck all season, off season, being like, oh, this is terrible. So,
I think that you're 100% right. Timing is everything, but I think the player is wrong because Draisaitl year after year after year has been exceptional in the playoffs. It's actually McDavid who hasn't. Like, I'm just going off memory here. But I'm pretty sure most of his points last postseason came on the power play. Like he had like virtually no 5-on-5 scoring, and that's what is going to set this team apart. Is when McDavid gets going at 5-on-5 and he can break through some of that playoff structure that we don't see throughout the regular season. When like you have to be at your best, we need McDavid to find that sixth gear.
Which is funny too, right? Because like I think of like Tkachuk. I mean, Kachuk's probably the best player in Florida, right? But like Kachuk's almost like the second player behind, say, like the Barkov, the center, the big kind of like the offensive piece, and his performance got them to the. I always kind of look at like the secondary guy in my analogies, hence why I would say the Draisaitl, or I'd almost say like more like the William Nylander, Mitch Marner in Toronto. Not the top guy, but it almost needs to be that secondary guy that kind of gets you going there, right? Because you always kind of expect your stars to perform, right? You kind of expect that quality performance from the top. So that's why I said that analogy the way I did. But I agree, McDavid needs to be a bit better.
Yeah, he does. Playoff McDavid is not regular season McDavid.
But that sounds like so cringy talking head TSN take that I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. If they can make Matthias Ekholm a full season to him, I want to see what he has to offer because he was a catalyst on the defensive end. Can they get more out of Broberg? Can they get more out of Evan Bouchard? Like, can Evan Bouchard be the playoff presence he was last year for the regular season? And if that's the case, yes, this team has no concerns. But I don't know.
It's fun to have a flawed product, right? Like every team we're looking at, you can kind of poke holes here, right? And I mean, just like anything, I'm guessing this team doesn't have a lot of cap space. That's kind of just NHL. Every team is in cap hell. So when we say like, see, they mismanaged that salary cap, everyone does. We just randomly give Owen Powers and who's the other loser in Buffalo there? That defenseman that just made like $9 million this season. And I'm like, what is happening?
Rasmus Dahlin
and Owen Powers, Jake Sanderson all make $8 million this year? What happened?
What are you going to do with $9 million in Buffalo is the bigger conundrum.
Yeah, that's.
Do you just go up to Niagara Falls and waste it? Because there's literally nothing else to do.
I guess. There's like you can play a casino on your phone right now. Like it's not even a.
Rasmus Dahlin, they just poor guy. I hope he does well on the crap stables.
Oh yeah. So the Oilers were marking as a playoff spots. Yeah.
Yes, it would be
Knights, Oilers, Kings, probably is the Pacific.
Yeah. I'm very high on the Kings this year. I think the Kings are going to be great.
Okay.
I don't know if Edmonton's actually going to win that division. I don't think the Knights are as good as we've seen from them. Take this with a grain of salt. They won the Stanley Cup. I've told you how much I hate this team. The Knights, and it's mostly Mark Stone. Mark Stone's just a baby. Anyways, I think it's Kings, Oilers, Knights in the Pacific with the Canucks knocking on the door.
Sweet. Yeah, I could dig that. Cool. That's it for our previews, our roundup. If you guys forgot anything, hopefully we reminded a couple things. I remembered a couple things that I'd forgotten. while going through all this activity. And that leaves us kind of at the end of the show, guys, where we have to normally do fantasy, but we don't do that anymore. So that's kind of fun. Talked a little bit long today. Normally we do like a gambling advice. Now I'm gone for a couple weeks here coming up, so I think you'll definitely have a show next week. After that, I don't know what the plan is. But let's wet our beaks a little bit. We can have some future picks. Let's just talk about some plays that we like. Do you have any individual plays on games for tonight that you want to talk about, or are you more of looking at like a futures market?
So I actually don't have any futures plays that I was ready to share. I have 3 picks, well, technically 4 picks, one of which is already going, and it's going to sound a little fishy, but I'm going to let it rip anyways, because you'll tell from the segment earlier in the show that I'm very high on this team. But anyways, 3, technically 4 picks,
okay.
But they're all games tonight.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, let's go through those. I have some like futures markets that I was going to, things I like, but I don't hate, and go from there.
Okay, how many picks do you got?
I could do 3. Let's do 3 and 3.
Okay, I'll let her rip then. The game's already started. You guys heard how much I was very high on the Senators, especially at home, young team, season opener. I expected them to be at their best. It was some curious. It was a curious line. They were short favorites. I expected them to blow this team out of the water. Flyers, underwhelming squad. They were plus 130 on the goal line, so to win by basically 2 or more.
Yeah.
And I bet $30 on them. I see that the Flyers have actually closed the gap, but the Sens jumped out early. Jacob Chitrin. Oh, look at that. 2 goals to start the season. They put them out front 2-0. Flyers closed the gap, but still, Senators plus 130 was my pick.
Okay, nice. Solid. For myself, I'm looking just at the future market, looking at who I think could win the Stanley Cup, right? I'm going to make a play on that. I found just division to win. So you can have every team in that division, and the Metro Division. So that means I get the Pittsburgh Penguins, I get me some New Jersey Devils, I get me some Carolina Hurricanes, I even get me the Rangers. For plus 275, I don't hate that play. If you were in the futures market, I'm thinking you got a lot of quality teams there. They're going to maybe cannibalize themselves, and like Grant was alluding to, like we could see the Pittsburgh Penguins make another trip to the big dance, right? So getting all those teams a little bit plus money, and they're not even the biggest favorites in that one. So I don't mind that for some money there. What's your second play?
So it's Saturday. It's the first Saturday of the NHL. I am all ready for shootout Saturdays. I'm going to let her rip. One of my favorite plays is the back end of a home and home, or like home and home series in general. Sometimes it's worth pulling the trigger on night 1, but in this case, it's night 2. It also coincides with Hockey Night in Canada, which was another kind of my shootout plays or shootout strategies. Oftentimes we see those games go to a shootout. So we have oh my God, what are those circles called?
A Venn diagram.
We have a Venn diagram. Thank you for overlapping. And I'm taking the Oilers Canucks to go to overtime. It's plus 390, which I think is just an exceptional value. $30 to win 117.
Solid. Yeah, I was looking at that. I was looking at all like the overtimes and like shootouts and stuff, and I was like, I should really get on that. I didn't though. Other plays I do like in terms of the futures market. Like McDavid at plus money, you can get him at plus 100. So you get plus money McDavid on the MVP. Should we not be putting money on that? Like, is that not just like a foregone conclusion that McDavid is probably going to win the MVP again this year, barring some type of injury, he's just so far and away the best player in hockey. Why don't we just make money on that?
I think that, yeah, the gap inevitably grows, and McDavid is always at the front of the pack. So even if he gets off to a slow start, which by McDavid standards still puts him in the top 3 players in the NHL, you're just going to see the price get shorter and shorter as the year progresses. Yeah,
like barring some type of unworld performance, right? We see Matthews hit another 60-point season or something like that. I don't know. I like that, some plus money on McDavid. Then your final pick, your final game, your final wager of the day.
Going back to the overtime well, and it's coming through a defensive lens. I think that So Seattle Kraken, they're already on to the third game tonight. And it's their third straight road game. They play 7 of the first 10 on the road, which is probably going to negatively impact the start of the season they have. They've scored 1 goal on 56 or 58 shots already this year. Not a great start. But they're playing a Predators squad that also doesn't blow you away offensively. Or is it Predators? Sorry, it's Blues tonight. They play the Blues tonight. So they're playing a Blues squad that is, underwhelming offensively. They're not going to beat you with offense. If anything, they're going to make you play their defensive game, and you're going to be lucky if you come out on top. I don't know how this one gets sorted out in regulation. It feels like one of those defensive slugfests that just drags on and on and on. Maybe like 2-1 in a shootout, 3-2 in a shootout, or overtime, something like that. Anyways, I'm betting that game to go to a overtime or a shootout. It's plus 310. So that would be, let me do some quick math here. $30 to win 93.
Okay, nice. And then finally, Stanley Cup favorites right now. Of the teams at the top, they were very, very heavy favorites, and I don't understand why. So currently, right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the favorites to win the Stanley Cup at plus 880. So you bet $100, you win $880. Why wouldn't you bet the top 7 picks? Like if you're getting that good of odds, right? Like no one's that short of a favorite at this point. Like they think that the field is just that open. Why would you just sprinkle money and then kind of be guaranteed yourself? Because you go down the list, you get to the 14th best team, you're getting like 20-1 odds. That team ends up in the finals. Like that's a great payout. And worst case, you just get a return on, like you just get your money back at the end of the year. So I've never really understood that play. So what I was going to do is pick like one of the top teams, like the Oilers, plus 980 to win the Stanley Cup right now. Seems a little, I don't know, one-sided. I don't hate those plays. So if I was to sprinkle some money in the future market, I might just make a massive dump and try and cover all bases and just make money in April or June, I guess, as it were.
So it sounds almost akin to a roulette strategy where you're willing to dump more money on a wider array of numbers with the expectation like, all right, I'm going to cover most of my probable bases and I'm going to scratch out 5, 10, 15% return. Is that the strategy?
Basically, pretty much. And I just don't understand. And I guess that strategy does exist. It just doesn't have the high reward, right? Versus just picking the one. Okay, fair enough. Final play, if I was to do something. Oh man, I love me just bet against the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you can get plus money on the Minnesota Wild, I haven't seen them play yet this year. I imagine it's probably close to fair, right?
Cool. Yeah. My last pick, very much the same. Well, not very much the same. Yeah, the exact same strategy that I had in years past. If you parlay all 3 of those picks together, I've got $10 left. I think it pays $462. $462 on a $10 wager.
It's not bad. Solid. Nice. All right. Good. Well, Grant, that's how the game's supposed to be played. Is we take $100 theoretical dollars, bet them on like a couple games, keep track how we're doing. I just went rogue. I didn't tell anyone. So. Well,
sometimes we take these things for granted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been doing this 8 years now. Can you believe we're on our 8th year of podcasting?
Makes sense. I mean, I feel like we hold a conversation pretty well on a mic, so it kind of shows.
I guess so. Yeah. An hour and a half later, I hope it shows.
Yeah, hopefully. Holy smokes. Yeah, I know. I was like, man, we're making great time. We're in Vancouver, and we're like 20 minutes. So I was like, psh, we flying today. Oh, good. Wow, all right.
Bits of resistance. That PuckDoku probably slowed us down a little bit.
Big time. Like, we should almost do it beforehand and just look really smart and spec. Obviously, it's, I don't even remember the name.
Austin. Everybody forgets Lucas Pisa played in both Nashville and Vegas.
Yes! Oh, yeah, we should definitely be Schwabs.
Former Lethbridge Hurricane, in fact. I remember watching that guy in university.
Yesterday, it was like NCAA was one of the categories, and it was like Chicago Blackhawk, and I'm like...
Jonathan Taves, he played North Dakota.
Yeah, apparently. I didn't know that. That was like the top answer. I was like, I never would have guessed that. So,
Also, random aside, I know we're running along here, but have you seen North Dakota's hockey facilities?
No.
Anyways, just if I find it again on Instagram, they showed us everything. They basically, to summarize it, They have an altitude room where they can adjust the oxygen levels so that when they go to play in Denver, they're adjusted to the altitude.
Huh. Well then.
How fucked is that? Here, we're going to deprive you some oxygen so you know what it's like in Colorado, you dicks.
And we paid $12 at the Saddle Dome for a shitty experience, and they have like the worst locker room. And they're professional athletes.
Yeah. I don't want to open the can of worms that is the Flames Arena, not this early in the season, because that's Pandora's box. But talking points. We got lots to talk about while this new stadium's getting built.
There you go. Sweet. Cool. So with that, I think we say bye, guys. See you at least next week.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
The Canada Puck Podcast would not be the Canada Puck Podcast without our babe of the week.
It's been a little while since I've been on the dance floor. I forgot how this tango went. I'm sorry, my partner.
So, I'm not pulling any punches. This lady's been at the top of the food chain for many, many years. But in the spirit of highlighting women in sports and what she just accomplished, and that is becoming the latest woman to become a play-by-play analyst or color analyst. She's joining, I think, the radio crew for the Calgary Flames, which makes me excited because there's a possibility we could bump into this lady in Calgary. Megan Mickelson. I don't know if you remember Megan Mickelson from our university days, but captivating on the ice for more than just her hockey skills reasons. She's still got it. Mickelson 12. You can find her on Instagram. MIKKELSON 12. Mom now, so she checks a few boxes if you're into the MILF scene. But Megan Mickelson, absolute woman rocket. Schwing, she is our babe of the week.
Oh, I've definitely seen her. Yep. I've seen her awkwardly at like Flames games. Huh, cool. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, she'll do like she's like, hey guys, I'm here with the hot dog vendor. We're going to talk about what kind of dogs he's using tonight. All beef. Wow, thanks. That's compelling stuff.
Captivating.
Absolutely captivating. Hopefully you guys get your hot dogs here located at section 407 and 512. All right, awesome.
Yeah, well, she's on to bigger and better things, and rightfully so.
Awesome.
Not a face for radio, though.
Solid. So that is our preseason show. So as you guys are getting ready to watch Hockey Night in Canada, you got hockey on. Throw us on the computer. Let us juice up your ears. That's disgusting. I don't know why I said it that way. Holy smokes. Huh.
Juiced up ears. Yeah, you know what? We'll juice up anywhere you need. That's the type of guys we are.
Woo! Sweet. So that we'll be back next week with some more in-season action. Good time. Bigger sample size. We don't have to overreact to 8-1 Edmonton. Or maybe we do. Maybe they're just terrible the first couple of games. We can talk about the sky's falling.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I want this to see how bad it can get.
Solid. Okay. With that, I think we say party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.